Hello, good evening. Another episode of Elephant in the Room. We are midweek on a Wednesday. Welcome everybody to our show once again. Taranjeet, how are you today?
I'm well. I'm very well. It's been a long day. Started out quite early today, but this evening has kept me going until now. Yeah, I'm really excited to hear what the today's guest is all about. There's some tremendous sharings that we're going to be having from the guest to this evening. But it's very interesting to see how things are playing out from last week's segment to this week's segment. And now the whole focus, just to reiterate, is around the reality of today. And what does that mean for us as individuals? What does that mean for us as business leaders? So who will be the guest this evening, Muihan? Pray tell.
Yes. So as we were been sharing for the last few days, as well as in our poster promotional items, today we are very delighted to have with us Ranukka Singham to join us. So Ranukka is the founder of Image Revamp Consultancy and has been running, has been recently as well not chosen as one of the 100 most influential LinkedIn icons in Malaysia. I think you are also one of them, Taranjeet. Too bad I didn't make the list this year, but nevertheless, well done to both of you.
There's always next year, no worries.
Anyway, throughout her 10-year career, Ranukka's work have helped to develop over 8,000 professionals through her proven data-driven branding programs, all right? So her accolades include certifications of being an NLP practitioner, as well as a men's styling consultant. Wow, she specializes in advising men, all right? And she is also a certified HRDF trainer. So by qualification, she holds a BSc in optometry. So with that, let us welcome Ranukka to our show. Welcome, Ranukka. Welcome to Elephant in the Room.
Hi. Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me. So excited about this.
It's our pleasure, Ranukka. It's absolutely our pleasure. And it's great to have you finally on board.
Yes.
The ability now to have this interaction and listen and hear your sharings will be absolutely amazing. So allow me to start very quickly. We don't have a lot of time. It's only 30 minutes. So, the faster we get will be great. So the first thing I would like to do is maybe inquire from yourself around this changing environment that we are experiencing today.
Right.
The whole virtuality that we are in, and we have been in for the past 3 months. How should business managers, and we are talking specifically around people managers, business managers as a whole, how should business managers project themselves in today's environment, Ranukka?
Right. That's a really good question. So I think I need to really start from the beginning here, where when we started with this MCO thing, it was really a first time that all of us were exposed to the working from home culture, and so a lot of businesses had that leniency of having this thing where you can it's okay, you can wear anything you want, you can be whatever you want to, because you're at home and we want to just have you being comfortable. But as we go on to this current new reality where even though the MCO might be lifted soon or lifted totally, some companies are still going to be practicing working from home in an alternate basis. So this is going to be our new reality right now, and as people managers, you need to start looking at the fact that working from home is going to be has to be treated as like how your employees or your team members are supposed to be like when they are in the office itself. So many aspects of it needs to be counted that way. And I think one very important thing when it comes to professional presence and image is that many organizations might have actually overlooked that part where they haven't really enforced or instilled that you have to look a certain way. And I think people managers or leaders need to think about this. Like, would you allow your staff to wear casually or pajamas to come to work? No, right? So why is this actually allowed if it's done virtually on video calls? So I think that's something that really needs to be addressed here. Yeah.
So let me actually make this point. I
Mm,
think it's no longer a new reality. This is the reality.
right.
I feel people talk about a new normal, and you know what? There is no new. This
Yeah.
is the normal.
It's not new
This is
anymore.
it. Yeah, this is it. So the question then, and that's a really good point, and allow me to
Mm,
deep dive a little bit more.
right.
When you now say, coming to a video call in your PJs, or coming to a video call a bit shabbily dressed,
Yeah.
to be fair, we've never had that experience before,
Yeah.
simply because before, we'll have a 1 day or a 2 day video call because I happen to be sick at home, as an
Yeah.
example. Now
Right.
this is it. So are there new policies that need to be put into place? Are there new policies that have to be crafted? What are your thoughts here, Renuka?
I think before any policies is crafted, right, I believe that the organizations needs to also kind of provide a full understanding to their team member as to why this is really important. Now, on this note, right, I actually did some deep dive on my own, and I realized that there are many studies that kind of, encourages and gives you a reason of the big why as to why we need to dress a certain way when we're meeting our clients externally or
Good.
internally, right? So one of the surveys or studies I've seen online, which was this one done in 2015 on social psychology and personality sciences, it actually shows that results shows that the subjects who dressed well, looked the part, right, had an increase in strategic thinking as well as focus level, and their creativity level was also higher. So in some ways, right, really enforcing the fact that your team members need to dress a certain way to dress professionally, right, really helps in the business continuity of things. And that's not just all. In fact, the continuation from this study shows, right, for people who wear, this is very specific, sweatpants or pajamas, had a reduction on productivity as well as engagement with the other team members. So in some ways, right, if you're not going to address this part of professional dressing, or you're not going to address this part of, hey, you shouldn't be wearing shabbily to work, this is what you're going to be foreseeing that would happen actually in your business, where you will start having employees that are disengaged. They don't feel like they are actually working, and that, right, kind of also overspills to work-life balance. And I'll explain a little bit about why. So I'm sure a lot of you have, both of you have friends who probably share this, that, while I'm working from home, I can't seem to disengage or dissociate myself from work. Work seems to be, prolonged in a certain way. I find myself working until 10 p.m., examples of this. And this has to do a lot of times, right, with that conditioning of your mindset. When you wake up, you dress up, the way how you're dressing up to work. For women, you put makeup. For men, you gel your hair up. This conditions your mind to know that, hey, right now I'm at work. And that really helps you to kind of differentiate, because come 6 p.m. or 6:30 for that matter, when you are, having dinner and then you shower and you change to your normal clothes, that your mind itself tells you that, hey, there's a differentiation. Now it's chill time. I'm not working anymore. So in some ways, promoting professional dressing in the workplace kind of helps your associates with the work-life balance situation that many people struggle at this moment.
That's
Yeah.
a very interesting research that you shared, Renuka, and I got a follow-up question to that. But just
Sure.
before I do that, I just want to really quickly welcome all of our guests, our audience today. Do a quick shout out. So first is our loyal supporters from Perth, Sujit and Bagwell. Thank you for tuning in. Mel from Brisbane. Melody was our guest last Friday. So thank
Oh,
you for continue to tune in. Okay. Dr. Heng from Singapore, Michael Heng from Singapore. Thank you for your support. Chantel, first time I see you here. Chantel is a good
hi,
mate of ours.
Chanel.
All right. My good brother Ted Moy, thanks for tuning in. Chi Sing as well, right? These are all my Mind Heart Connection buddies, all right? And also we have Ing Bing tuning in, all right? Thank you for all your support, okay? So I just want to quickly ask, so in that notion, because you talk about professional dressing and that frames our psyche of that, how would
Yeah.
that qualify for our startup organization or those who embrace a startup culture?
Right.
And I know for sure, because I was consulting for a financial institute, they were in the insurance world. I think banks are moved further ahead than the insurance. The insurance are still quite traditionalist. And this particular client of mine, when they decided to do casual dressing, not just Friday, throughout the week, they realized productivity just shot up, in a lot of
Okay.
cases.
Right.
Maybe you can comment about that based on what you just shared previous to this.
Right. So on that study, right, it's interesting that you mentioned about productivity because on this study, on the other hand, when you saw the subjects wearing sweats or pajamas, we realized that the negotiation skills of these subjects tend to actually go downwards. And that is also sometimes to do with the first impressions of how other people view them when you're wearing very shabbily. Having said that, right, I suppose when it comes to a lot of startups, I also do see that smart casual is right now a trend. If you want to be hip, you want to have this kind of dress codes, you attract the millennials or the Gen Zs more, right? But I think very importantly, the definition of smart casual needs to really be enforced there as well, because your understanding of smart casual and mine might be very different, right?
Correct.
But I think the entire lifestyle of having smart casual kind of gives the employees that feeling that this company is very fresh and all that. It's just that I think polishness still has to be something that you have to consider upon. You cannot neglect that. So I think I've also spoke to some HR managers who manage companies where there's a smart casual kind of, they call it flexi dressing, right?
Yeah.
I always tell them, right, yeah, you can have that. From my perspective, no problem at all. But you just have to have certain guidelines. What exactly is smart casual here? Yeah, so that you don't risk having people wearing shorts or singlets and stuff like that. Yeah.
Cool. So before I bring Taranjeet back on, I think there's one question from Mel. I think she indicates how you present yourself outwardly is likely an indicator how you feel internally. Maybe your thoughts on this,
Oh my
Ranukka?
gosh. Mel, this is exactly the tagline of my company. So matching substance with perception is the tagline of my company. And I strongly do feel that as well, because pertaining to what you just mentioned here on presenting yourself outwardly as an indication of how you feel internally, this comes to show that at this moment right now, right, when it comes to professional dressing or image for that matter, there is really no one size fit all. Because even if you're in a similar industry, right, it really depends on how you want to be perceived. What's your edge, right? What's something that you want people to know and remember you as? And that has to be reflected very fully in terms of your image and brand. So a lot of times, right, individuals don't know that. And it takes you, more than 1 minute or more than 5 minutes to understand that, hey, this is what you're all about via conversations. And that's really where first impression comes to play, because if you're not able to establish that in the first time people see you, right, you don't get a second chance to build a first impression, right? So that's
Absolutely.
something, even virtually speaking in a video call, you have to have that in mind. So right now, sorry.
So no. So and that's a very good point, Renuka. So allow me to take it one step even deeper. Now, today you're finding 50% of our workforce is going to be working from home.
Right.
If not 75%. There's a company I know, they've decided to go virtual now until the end of the year,
Yes.
and that's simply because they don't want to risk safety of their staff.
Yeah.
And we are only coming to the office to do printouts and just make
Yeah.
sure that we're doing maintenance of the network and what have you. So if that is the case, the requirements of managers have now shifted tremendously.
Right.
The demands that I have of my people managers about how they engage with my team has completely shot off the charts.
Yep.
Why? Because I don't know what my team is looking like when I
Yeah.
have this conversation.
Yeah.
Earlier, I would have them around a table and I can look you in the eye. But right now, I can't even look you. I don't even know whether you are really listening to me or
Yeah.
buying the latest offers from Lazada.
Yes.
To be fair, so I
Yeah.
don't even know, and I can see you nodding your head, but are you really nodding the head because you understand, or
Right.
what's, so what is your thought around that,
Yeah.
Renuka?
It's interesting that you mentioned about engagement because I think that's exactly the point of it. I feel that people managers or anyone that is hosting a meeting, right, you've got to have that in mind right now that yes, attention spans are no longer as high as it is when it is in a physical setting, right? So maybe in terms of how you conduct the meetings or how the entire process is, right, has to be relooked into it. So you probably want to do more of like an interactive, meaning to say a discussion based kind of meeting rather than a one-off, I'm telling you, I'm giving you announcements. Because when people start interacting or have the need to interact, there is no choice but to focus, because you would run the risk of, oh, what's that? What did you say? Sorry.
Yes.
And then you would know, right? Oh, okay, you haven't been paying attention there. So I feel that the mode of how you do it has to be very different. Similar to example, even for me, because right now I also do many virtual trainings, and
Good.
a lot of people tell me like, hey, image and branding, right? How are you going to do it virtually? But there is really a way. I mean, like as long as you're constantly keeping your audiences engaged and interactive, there is a high possibility it can be successful. So having people being very accountable about like the learning or what they need to provide to the table really helps you to kind of increase the effectiveness of video calls, which is why when I speak to some of my friends who are leading a team in the organization, I tell them that prior to coming into the video call, right, I think the best thing you can do is send an email to your team like, hey guys, this is a topic we are going to discuss about this. So the team members now know that when they come into the video call, they have to provide something, they have to contribute. Yeah,
And it's focused. It's a focused
correct.
discussion, but
Yeah,
it still doesn't stop me or anyone who is a high performer who is
yeah,
able to do that level of multitasking. It doesn't
mm,
stop me from, if at the office I'm messing around with my phone
right.
whilst at the conference table. What's to stop me from messing around with my 17-inch computer whilst
Right.
having this chat with you?
Yeah, but to be very honest, right, Taranjeet, I think this is some of the things that aren't really easy to control at this moment, because as you mentioned, even physically, right, it's not going to be easy. You do have some people in a meeting, right, the phone is under the table and they're texting. So similarly here, the only way that you can help, right, is to actually keep your meetings small, concise, and discussion based. That's the only way forward. I oftentimes tell people, right, you best not to have your meetings in a very big setting where you have like, I don't know, 10 to 20 people in, because when you find it really hard to control the crowd, it's going to be not effective. You're wasting everyone's time in that sense. So I think similar to offline, where it's a physical meeting, you will still have some jokers that are not paying attention. Online is the same thing, but I'm just saying that for people who usually you expect them to pay attention before, at least here you're able to engage them that way. Yeah, so just have to be, I think the key is really being creative, that's what I mean, some people do ask me about it, like, because I do a lot of virtual trainings, how do I keep everybody so engaged? Then I say, like, it's just really being creative. There's so many things, so many applications, so many platforms that you can really use to
Yeah.
make your entire session, right, bam, very, very interactive, one thing after another. And people, time flies, if that
Yes.
happens. Yeah.
Yeah. Great. So
Yeah.
I have few questions from the audience, but I will park it
Right.
aside because since we talk about this video conference presence, I wanted
Yeah.
to get you to share with our audience or even share with us any tips for those professional managers out there, especially those leading a
Right.
team, to
Right.
perfect or enhance their video call presence, and
Right.
also share with us what are the few big no-nos
Oh,
cannot do
okay.
one.
Sure, sure. So, contrary to the normal tips that you see right now circulating online, in fact, for me in my platforms, I do share that as well when it comes to attire, and all that. I think I want to share a little bit more towards other aspects of it. So the first tip I have is actually your body language, and for that, right, I'm really talking about your eye contact here. So when you're actually conducting a meeting or a call, for that matter, don't look at the screen, don't look at yourself in the frame, right? It's basically not value adding, but instead look at your camera, because when you're looking at the camera, it feels as if, right, the participants are engaged with you. It looks like you're looking at them. Yeah, so really be very mindful of that, because that's what I realized in a lot of meetings. Everyone is either looking at themselves or looking at other people in the platforms, but when you're speaking, right, it's really best to really have that eye contact. So that's tip number one. Tip number 2 is reduce distraction and create attention. So distraction meaning to say anything that's in your background that is distracting, that would actually cause people to pay attention to the back rather than you. Try to minimize it, and create more attention by not disappearing to the background. And this is easy to be done based on contrast. So making sure that your background and whatever you're wearing has a higher contrast, because the higher the contrast is, the more memorable that you would be. Yeah, so that's number 2. And number 3 is continued interaction. Because as I mentioned to you, right, having interaction discussions really gets people to be more engaged in the call. And which, interestingly, when I found this study done by a bunch of German academics, you know that if there's a silence of just 1.2 seconds, the other person, the person at the other end would instantaneously feel disengaged and feel that you're not focused on the conversation. 1.2 seconds. Which is why I oftentimes tell people managers, when you're doing a meeting, try to get everybody to unmute themselves, while the discussion is happening, so that it can be more fluid, and to minimize this kind of 1 second delays that will cause awkward silence in that sense. So that's the 3 tips I have: body language, minimizing distraction, and the third one is constant interaction. So that's one of the 3 things I want to share with you. On the big no's, however, I would say the first thing is a big no is, getting your video calls turned off. I think that's one thing I noticed in a lot of calls. Only the speaker's video is turned on, everybody is off. That one, it's even harder to control what everyone is doing, right? So the worst ones I've ever seen is really those like turn off your video and mute yourself. For all you know, they're not even in front of the laptop, right? So make sure that the video is turned on. In terms of appearance, make sure that the lighting is actually done well. Again, these are based on experiences that I've also noticed in video calls I've been in. I've noticed some people don't really pay attention to the lighting, and if you're sitting with the light at your back, you're basically it's just your silhouette that is seen. Like, we don't need that mystery during video calls. Yeah, so make sure the lighting is facing on your face. And the third one, of course, is really much related to your dressing. Don't go too casual. I think I'd be lying if I haven't seen people in the calls, right, in their pajamas. I think up until now, I still see that. And that's why I still advocate that, hey, you've got to dress as if that you're going for work or as if you're meeting your clients. No excuses on that. Yeah. So the 3 things I would say, again, the big no's. Number 1, no turning off your video. Number 2, no paying attention to lighting. And then number 3 is, no towards casual dressing. Yeah, so that's the 3 things.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I think our audience really like that. And we got at least Mel, thank you for that, as well as Sulim. Oh, Sulim, you're on. How? Hi, Sulim. So just want to maybe quickly come back. We are running out of time, but want to wrap up. But
Okay.
I have a few questions here. I wanted to get your thoughts quickly.
Yeah.
So Dr. Michael from Singapore actually asked about dressing, because we were talking about formal and things like that. So you say, wouldn't then we wear company uniform, solve everything? Would that be a good
yes.
solution?
I would say yes and no. And I feel, right, it's very much dependent on the industry that you're in. Of course, being very data driven, I always like to go back to the numbers and studies, right? Because that's where, you have like conclusive answers to it. Studies also shows that, companies that practice uniform wearing seems to feel like the employees are more engaged in any activities, and they feel like they belong. So for that note, I would say yes to uniforms. But why do I say depending on industries? That because certain industries, for that matter, are considered more creative. So I think having a sense of individuality is very important. So I would say uniforms are very restricting in that manner. And I would, on that note, I'm going to say no for that. But I guess depending on where you're coming from and depending on what kind of employees or talents you're trying to attract, my personal opinion and experience is that anything from in Gen Zs, because, again, sense of individuality, I guess, having to go to work wearing uniform doesn't really, appeal to them that much. Yeah. I hope that answers the question.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, we are almost out of time, but Taranjeet.
Wow. Time flies.
Well, there you go. There you go. So one thing I've learned: no pagoda T-shirts for these sessions, Wihan.
Oh gosh, no, please no.
So shall we just get rid of that from our wardrobe? So on a serious note, I really enjoyed this,
Mm,
Renuka. I really enjoyed it. I love the sense of practicality that you bring to the table.
mm,
I think just to wrap this up, a really good tips that you've provided in terms of ensuring the level of engagement,
yep,
ensuring that there are certain things that you do and do not do. I really like it, and I like the fact that you talk about making sure. And I am also part of that, where you don't want to create any undue disturbance. So I don't off the video, but I do off the audio,
right,
because you're messing around with papers or whatever. You don't want to have those ruffling sounds. But
right.
it now makes complete sense, because the moment you off something, you have just detached yourself
Yes,
that
exactly.
little bit. And you're
Yeah,
absolutely right. And if
yeah,
if you go away and you off both, chances are you're
yeah.
just out of the room. You've just left the
You're not
room.
there.
Yeah, you just left the room.
Yeah.
So I really like it. And I will ensure that for my next sessions, we will
Mm-hmm.
have both of them on at any one point in time.
Mm-hmm.
That's one. The other one that I really enjoyed was the whole notion of how we need to get to grips
Yeah,
with the way we now cast ourselves, because after all, it is a casting experience. It's
right.
almost like newscasting,
Yeah.
because it's a one to many rather
Yeah.
than that interactive. So I like the discussion. I like where
Yeah.
we have headed to, and I really like the fact that time has passed just so fast, Renuka.
I know. Wow. I mean, I really
Yeah,
enjoyed
yeah.
myself. So I love the questions because I think one thing I just wanted to share, like, thank you so much for asking me these questions. As I think I also want to shed a lot of light in terms of how people view professional image, whether it is a necessity to practice
Yeah.
in an organization. And I want to just say that it is not for vanity reasons, yeah, guys. You're not asking your people to dress well because it just looks good. No, because it has such a huge impact, right, to how your business is going to be moving forward. So you want to think about that, and not just for the aspects of looking good when it comes to implementing professional image. Yeah.
Good, very
Wonderful,
good.
wonderful.
Yeah.
Muihan?
And I just wanted to ask you for your parting words, but I thought that was
Yeah.
wonderful enough.
I think
I
I
will
got the
not
done
I not
there.
further ask you to dilute that impactful statement that you just shared with all our audience. Thank you so much, Renuka. It's really,
Thank you
really
so much for having me.
lovely to
Yeah.
have you aboard to share your practical tips, as well as I think it's very important, and at least it gives professional image branding a different feel to it, and it's very, very
Mm.
practical in that sense. All right,
Yeah.
so we will talk to you soon. Well, let us wrap up the show. All right, see you in a short
Sure.
while. So, quick one, Taranjeet, who are we having tomorrow? Maybe to
Yeah,
just share.
absolutely, absolutely. So, if you could just pull the young man's picture up on board.
Yes, I
So
do.
we've got, there we go. So there we go. We have Adli. Adli is coming in from Sime Darby Oils. He's going to be sharing with us some key thoughts around what's happening in these bigger outfits, the implication of that on how the MCO has impacted their business, but more importantly, also how people, in terms of the sales and delivery, and all these individuals are being impacted in this regard. So that's going to be a very exciting experience with Adli. It's going to be quite intriguing. And my last one is on Friday. So Friday, we will now start to wrap this up by inquiring from David Jones, who is the managing director of CMI Asia Pacific. And CMI is the Chartered Management Institute, the Royal Charter out of the UK. What would be some of the things that we can take away as managers? What would the CMI experience be in this regard? So, exciting 2 days planned ahead. I'm looking forward to hearing what our guests have to say. Muihan?
Great. So thank you once again for all of you who have tuned in today. We really, really value and grateful for your support. Just to keep check, this is episode 41. Yay! And we are really, really happy that your continued support, tuning in every evening at 6 p.m. So we hope to see you again tomorrow at 6 p.m. When we have Atli from Sime W Oils to join us. With that, wish you a very good evening. Rest well and also spend time with your family. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.